Hello everyone, I am Laethas and welcome back again for another video. Today I have my manga haul for the month of July 2019, and without further ado, let's just get right into this. First off, I have Volume 6 for As Miss Beelzebub Likes, just a fun, fluffy 4-coma comedy series that I have been enjoying reading volume to volume. Nothing super special about this series. It did have an anime that aired somewhat recently. It's just a fun, fluffy comedy in the 4-coma style, though there are a few sections that it does change format to like a regular manga paneling format as opposed to just being a 4-coma. But aside from that, it is pretty much just kind of a standard fluffy comedy series, very lighthearted. And if that is what you're looking for, then I would definitely recommend giving As Miss Beelzebub Likes a shot, because it is that fun, fluffy, lighthearted comedy series that you might enjoy. Next up, I have the 5th volume for Konohana Keaton. Now, this is a very sort of calming, relaxing story about these little fox girls working at an inn serving different supernatural guests, and that really is all it is. It's very calming, very relaxing, very kind of slow-paced, and it has some comedy moments thrown in there, but most of the story revolves just kind of watching these girls go about their day-to-day activities of managing this sort of inn for supernatural spirits. So if you're looking for a series to sort of wind down and calm down, and you're in for the aesthetic of just a bunch of little fox girls running an inn, then this may be a series to look into. But aside from that, again, as with Miss Beelzebub Likes, I don't think this is anything super special, so this isn't one I would recommend to literally every single person. But if you are in the market for just more of a calm, slow-paced, just watch cute girls doing cute things kind of, then this might be a series I would look into. Though do keep in mind that these volumes are kind of short, and this one, unlike Miss Beelzebub Likes, this one is not a 4-coma. This is a very standard manga series, but that is the 5th volume for Konohana Keaton. Next up, I have Volume 1, kind of, for Ouran High School Host Club. This is the Anime Expo limited edition volume. Now, I did not go to Anime Expo, though if you go to Barnes & Noble, they may still have copies of this available to buy from their store. They are limited edition. As soon as I saw the tweet by Shoujo Beat, I retweeted this tweet. I went ahead and picked up a copy because they are limited edition. I don't know how many are going to be remaining, but if you do want to snag the Anime Expo limited edition version, go to Barnes & Noble. You may be able to still find yourself a copy. But I have not gotten into this series. This is only a Volume 1, but I have heard a lot of good things about Ouran High School Host Club, and I do know that Viz Media has produced a box set for this series. So depending on how much I enjoy this volume, I may consider picking that up in the future, but as of now, I just have this Volume 1 of the Anime Expo exclusive edition for the first volume of Ouran High School Host Club. Next up, I have Volume 17 for Seraph of the End. Now, the mangaka for this series has stated that things are kind of coming to a conclusion. They didn't specify like how many volumes it would probably be before they reach that conclusion, but the series is kind of trying to wrap things up at this point. I have not read this volume in particular yet, but I have read a large portion of the series. As for the kind of series that this is very much a shonen action battle manga. So if you're in the market for a shonen action series, this one has vampires built in as part of its aesthetic. So if you are looking for a story that involves vampires and you're wanting to get a shonen action-y series, then you might want to look into picking this one up. As opposed to that, this series isn't overly special when it comes to shonen action series. It just happens to have the elements that I am wanting to read currently. I always enjoy series that have vampires in them. Love to see what different artists do with that kind of archetype and sort of like supernatural creature that, you know, it's been in a lot of different scenarios, and I want to see what this pair, there's a storyboards done by Daisuke Furuya, so there's kind of 3 people working on this series. Kind of want to see how they take things in the future. This is my first volume, I have another volume that also has the Viz Media logo change in it. You know, that may bother some people more than it bothers others. I find it kind of annoying, but there's not really much I can do. I could probably, you know, make a video discussing like logos and, you know, different practices that different manga publishers make, but that's too much for this one manga haul video. But do keep in mind that they are changing their logo. I know they recently changed their bottom logo, but they are now changing their top logo. And so all series, I believe, that are either Shonen Jump or Shonen Jump Advanced going forward will have this new SJ logo up there at the top of the spine. But that is Seraph of the End, Volume 17. Next up, I have Volume 10 for The Water Dragon's Bride. Only one more volume to collect before the series is complete. I've read the first volume, though it has been a long time since I've read that, though I have read Rei Toma's other English series, that is Dawn of the Arcana, which I really enjoyed. So I'm really anticipating enjoying this series as well. And from what I've read of Rei Toma's stuff, her volumes are very quick to get through, and they generally take a shoujo-esque story, but she also likes to put a little bit of a darker sort of spin to a lot of her material, well, the only other material of which I have reference for. But I'm really interested to see what she's going to do in this series. I do know there is a time skip somewhere in one of the volumes, so it'll be interesting to see how she handles that. But this is Volume 10 for The Water Dragon's Bride, and I will be reading the series once I collect the 11th volume, but that is Rei Toma's The Water Dragon's Bride, Volume 10. Next up, I have Whenever Our Eyes Meet, a women's love anthology, and as the title would suggest, this is an anthology series dealing with Yuri between working women. So this is going to be office ladies and people in professional fields. So it is a little bit of a departure from what is standard for a lot of Yuri series, which is in high school, oftentimes that being an all-girls high school. This one instead takes a lot of that Yuri and romance into the professional environment and into sort of working life. So it kind of gives a little bit of a different change in the aesthetic and the setting, which for me is very refreshing, since a lot of the Yuri that we happen to get happens to be high school romance, and when you put the setting and the aesthetic more in an office-like setting, you do get a lot of different interactions between the characters that is atypical if it were set in high school. As for whether or not I think you should pick this up, if you are a big fan of Yuri, then I would definitely absolutely recommend this one. It's a nice change of pace, and I always enjoy myself some anthology Yuri series. It's nice seeing a bunch of different artists take on what they can do with a particular sort of topic, and so I really enjoyed this book. If you're not into Yuri, I don't know if there's a lot in it for you. Maybe if you're a big romance fan, then you might want to try looking into this. But this series really is for people that are fans of Yuri and they want a little bit of a refreshing take on girl romances. But I definitely really enjoyed Whenever Our Eyes Meet, and I have heard, I believe, that there are more of sort of Whenever Our Eyes Meet anthologies, so Yen Press may be picking up more of those, because another Yuri anthology series, Eclair, has additional volumes after the one that they already licensed or published, which they will also be sort of translating and releasing in English. So that might also be true for this series, though that's unconfirmed, and I do not know if that will actually happen. But this is the first volume of that sort of anthology series, Whenever Our Eyes Meet. Next up, I have the 5th and final volume for Black Torch. Now, I've only read the first volume of this series. As a matter of fact, this was one series from 2018 that I had in my 5 series from 2018 You Should Check Out list. And as a matter of fact, I picked this volume up just today, so I will be getting into finishing up this series very soon. From what I remember from reading the first volume, it is a shonen action series where our main character fuses with this demon, yokai, yoma, cat thing. So he kind of has some demonic powers, and he's gonna fight the bad guys. But yeah, pretty short. Maybe I'll do a first impressions or a review on this once I've completed it, since it isn't very long. Let me know if you guys would want to see that. But yeah, I can't say much more about this series other than it's a shonen action series where our main character kind of fuses with a demon to fight the demons. But in some respects, that might give you a Devilman vibe, but I don't think it's that dark in tone as compared to something like that. So I think making a comparison to Devilman is a little bit disingenuous. But it does have our main character fuses with the demon, as we have seen in a series such as Devilman by Go Nagai. But this is Black Torch Volume 5, the final volume for this series. Next up, we have Noragami Volume 20. Now, this is the 20th volume. The series was on a long hiatus for a long period of time. I believe Volume 19 was the first volume that came out after that hiatus had finished, and this is the continuation of the series here at Volume 20. Not sure how many volumes the series has remaining, though I can't imagine there being a whole lot more. Just kind of how the series is sort of playing out by its chapters. It feels like it's kind of trying to reach some sort of conclusion in the somewhat near/nearest distant future. So I don't imagine too many more volumes of Noragami coming out, but I could be wrong on that, of course. As I've mentioned probably before about Noragami, it is an excellent series. If you are a fan of sort of shonen series, or if you want to see a really well-crafted web of relationships between characters, especially between our main character Yato, Yuki, and Hiyori. The relationship sort of weaved between those 3 characters is especially good and compelling. Or if you're in the market for kind of a longer work that has more of a focus on action and interpersonal relationships between characters, highly recommend checking out Noragami. If you're curious about the manga, there are also 2 anime adaptations of the series. There's a Season 1 and a Season 2, each I believe 12 episodes long or 1 core. So if you want to check those out before diving into the manga, you can always go ahead and do that. But this is Volume 20 for Noragami. Next up, I have Volume 9 for Hagia Sama, Love is War. Now, I have yet to read this volume specifically, but I have read all the other volumes, and it is just a comedy series involving people that want the other person to confess their love first because they think it's a game about winning and losing. There has been an anime adaptation of this series that aired fairly recently, I believe. So if you want to check that out before getting into the manga, you might want to do that. This is the other series I was mentioning that has switched its Shonen Jump logo up there in the top of the spine. As for if you're wanting to pick this series up, if you're looking for a rom-com, then I would definitely recommend picking this one up. There is a little bit of a focus on the romance, but a majority of the series focuses on the comedy and the absurd situations that the characters sort of find themselves in. It isn't as absurd as a series such as Prison School, probably not by a long shot. That series is insane. But this series does have its bit of absurdity to it. So if you're looking for a comedy, a romance comedy, a rom-com with a little bit of an absurdist flair thrown in there, then I would recommend picking up Hagia Sama, Love is War. Next up, I have Flying Witch, Volume 7. These volumes are coming out slower and slower as we are now, I believe, caught up with the Japanese release. They may have just released Volume 8 or be releasing that soon, but we are pretty much caught up. with this series. As I've said before about this series, it is very calming, very relaxing series that you can sort of take slowly. It has its comedic moments thrown in there sort of all over the series, although the comedy is more of a low-key type of comedy, not at like an absurdist comedy as what I've mentioned before in Prison School and in Hagia Sama. It's more low-key, sort of toned down, and it involves a lot of the times the reactions of the characters that make things very funny. And if you're looking for a more laid-back, calming, slow series, then I would recommend picking up Flying Witch. I absolutely love this series and would definitely recommend checking out the anime that was produced a while ago now, I believe. I think it was the summer of 2015. Maybe it was produced in 2016. I don't really know. It was produced a while ago. But this is Flying Witch Volume 7, and I'm very happy to be continuing this series. Next up, I have Volume 4 of Tomoechan is a Girl. This is the halfway point of the series. There are going to be 8 volumes of this series in total, so only 4 more to go. But this is a 4-coma, 4-panel romance comedy manga. Not really a whole lot more to say about this, though I believe it executes that very, very well. And I've been really, really enjoying this series. Not yet read Volume 4, though I have read Volumes 1 through 3. And if you're in the market for a rom-com, I would absolutely recommend picking up Tomo-chan is a Girl. I think the comedic moments in this series are excellent, and I cannot wait to dive into this volume specifically, but that is Tomo-chan is a Girl Volume 4. Next I have Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs Volume 6. I have not read this volume yet. I believe I've read Volumes 1 through 3. I'm kind of backlogging a little bit for this series because I generally tend to binge read series. I've mentioned that before. But this series is a fan service comedy series with some romance aspects thrown in there. Though I think it generally tends to focus more on the fan service aspect more than some of the romance or the action aspects that are also present in this series. So if you are looking for a romance comedy series, then I would recommend checking this one out. If you are a big fan of the hot springs aesthetic, then you also might want to check this one out because a lot of the setting is around this hot spring. So it does have that setting and aesthetic if you really like that setting, and as I've said before, it is a fan service comedy primarily with some action and romance thrown in there as well. But I enjoyed Volumes 1 through 3, and I'm going to backlog a little bit more before I continue this series, but that is Volume 6 of Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs. Next up, I have the manga adaptation for At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. Now, this is an adaptation by Go Tanabe, and this is Volume 1, and this is the first of 2 omnibus volumes for this manga adaptation of the H.P. Lovecraft tale At the Mountains of Madness. Now, I have not read this one yet. I will be waiting until Volume 2 comes out, or the complete series is done before I dive into this one. But there is another series that Dark Horse has released by Go Tanabe that was an adaptation of a Lovecraft work. That one is called The Hound and Other Stories. So if you've read that and you like Go Tanabe's art and style, then you might also want to look into this one. Or if you're a big Lovecraft fan or a fan of horror in general, then you might want to pick this series up. But there are only going to be 2 omnibus volumes, and the second omnibus volume comes out, I believe, in October. So it is a relatively short series at only 2 omnibus volumes, but I will be reading that when the second volume comes out since I want to binge read the whole series. But that is the first omnibus volume for Go Tanabe's manga adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. Next up, I have Citrus, Volume 10. This is the final volume for Citrus, though there is a sequel series called Citrus Plus that 7 Seas is also going to be publishing in English. As many of you are probably aware, Citrus is one of the more popular Yuri series that has been releasing recently. It did get an anime adaptation. As for the sort of style and presentation of this one is more melodramatic and feels much like a soap opera. So if you're a Yuri fan and that's the kind of story that you want to be getting into, then maybe you want to pick this one up. Though I don't believe this is the best Yuri series that has ever come out. Though I did enjoy reading this one. I actually finished up this series today, and I did kind of enjoy the ending. It's not the best ending, but I at least enjoyed it. And I cannot wait for Citrus Plus to be coming out. But I did enjoy this Yuri work, so if you are a Yuri fan, definitely recommend checking it out. If you're just a general romance fan, then maybe this will not have as much for you. If you're a fan of more melodramatic soap opera-y romances, then you might enjoy this one more. But as for the demographic that I think will enjoy this, this is predominantly going to be enjoyed by Yuri fans, and if that's not who you are, you might not get as much enjoyment out of this series because it is more focused on that melodrama, and the romance might make you cringe or roll your head a little bit. But that is the final volume of Citrus Volume 10. Next up, I have Happiness, Volume 9. Only one more until this series is complete. I love Shuzo Oshimi's other works that are published in English, and I have read about half of Happiness, and I cannot wait to finish this series up. Absolutely fantastic from what I've read. Can't recommend it enough, and I just cannot wait for Volume 10 to come out. I don't really know what else to talk about because I don't really want to spoil anything, but I love Shuzo Oshimi's other works, and I've loved what I have read of this series thus far, and I cannot wait to get back into it. I highly, highly recommend this series, and I just want to get that 10th volume so I can read it all the way through in one sitting. But that is Happiness, Volume 9. Next up, I have Volume 10. For That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Now, I've only read 3 volumes of this series, but I absolutely loved those volumes, so I've just been backlogging a few of them that I will then binge read. But this series has had a 2-core anime adaptation, so if you enjoyed that, there is a manga version of that story. This is an isekai. If you do not like isekai, then you may want to stay away from this series, but of what I've read, I have absolutely loved this series. I like the comedy, and I enjoy the chemistry between the characters and sort of the quirkiness of each of those characters. But if you are in the mood for an isekai story, I do believe this is one of the better ones. I really love the first 3 volumes, cannot wait to read more, but this is Volume 10 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Next up, I have Tokyo Ghoul Re Volume 11. I don't believe this series needs much explanation. It is one of the most popular series out there, that being Tokyo Ghoul, and Tokyo Ghoul Re is the sequel series, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this series, but this is Volume 11, and there are 16 volumes in Tokyo Ghoul Re, so only 5 more volumes to go. Now, I haven't read any of Tokyo Ghoul Re, that's because I'm waiting for the series to complete before I start, though I really did enjoy Tokyo Ghoul, so I imagine Tokyo Ghoul Re will not disappoint, because it isn't typical that I will completely just go into a series blind. I usually like to have read material prior, and in this case, I feel that the first Tokyo Ghoul series is enough for me to justify going into the sequel series, but this is Volume 11 of Tokyo Ghoul Re. You probably already know whether or not you want to pick this series up, but yeah, can't comment on Tokyo Ghoul Re yet, but I definitely enjoyed the original series. Next up, I have Full Metal Alchemist, Full Metal Edition Volume 5. These editions are very nice, and there are going to be, I believe, 18 of them. I've seen Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the anime series. This will be my first time reading the manga, but I absolutely loved the anime series. One of the most popular, most well-liked series of all time, and this is the manga version, or the original version of that story by Hiromu Arakawa. Many of you probably already know about Full Metal Alchemist, but this will be my first reading of the manga series. I am anticipating enjoying it just as much as the anime adaptation of this work, but not much needs to be said about this work, and these Full Metal editions are quite nice. Not the best books, but the hardcover is really solid. Really enjoy these release. Not a whole lot to complain about, but this is the 5th Full Metal edition, and so we have 13 more to go. But that is Volume 5 for the Full Metal edition of Full Metal Alchemist. Speaking of special editions, we have Volume 5 of the Eternal Edition for Sailor Moon. I've not read this volume specifically yet, but of what I have read of Sailor Moon, I have been enjoying the series. These are not hardcover volumes, though they are really large, really nice quality paperback volumes with French flaps. I always love those. Though these volumes are very pricey. They are $28 a volume, so that isn't as bad as what I initially thought before picking up one of the volumes, but I still feel that is a little bit expensive. So unless you are a huge Sailor Moon fan, or you just really want the Eternal editions, I might just recommend going with the singles. But these volumes are quite nice, and I just kind of want to read the series, and I have the, ability to purchase these Eternal editions because I do quite like them. But this is Volume 5 of these Eternal editions, and I believe there are going to be 10 of them. But Sailor Moon, very popular series, and you'll probably know whether or not you want to be getting into Sailor Moon or not already. I just kind of want to see where this series sort of, what this series is sort of about, since it is a very important, very major work when it comes to manga and anime. And so that is why I am reading this series. But yeah, I've been enjoying it thus far. I've been reading it volume to volume. Haven't read this volume yet, but this is Volume 5 of Sailor Moon. And I have one more special edition today, and that is Book 2 of the Berserk Deluxe Edition releases. Absolutely love these volumes. I think Dark Horse has done a very good job with these releases. Now, this copy is still shrink-wrapped. If you're a Berserk fan, these are very, very nice volumes. Quite pricey at $50, though they do contain 3 volumes. So if you're in the market for getting Berserk, 3 single volumes is going to run you $45 retail. So for an extra $5, you can pick up the deluxe edition. As of course, if you're getting discounts, those numbers are going to vary. But really think Dark Horse has done an excellent job with these deluxe editions. Really happy to see them. As for Berserk, it is one of the best series I think that is currently running. Unfortunately, it runs into issues with hiatus quite frequently. I believe Volume 40 is coming out sometime this year, I believe in October. But we've been about on 1 volume per year. So it's going to be a while before this series finishes, I imagine. But yeah, really love this series, and I think Dark Horse has done an excellent job with these releases, as I have said previously. But yeah, if you're in the market for Berserk, these are the volumes I would recommend going with, unless you are concerned about like vertical shelf space, because I think these are actually a little bit thinner than 3 volumes, or maybe they're about the same. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend going with the singles unless for whatever reason you get them significantly cheaper than these deluxe editions, because there's not really that big of a price difference between 3 singles and 1 deluxe edition. So I'd recommend going with these unless you're concerned about, as I've said, vertical shelf space or the sheer like weight of the books, because these are kind of heavy for what they are. But that just shows that they're really nicely built, and I really like these. As I've said, I've just been gushing for a while about these volumes, but yeah, this is book 2 of the Berserk Deluxe Edition, containing volumes 4, 5, and 6. And that will do it for my manga haul for the month of July 2019. As always, let me know what you thought of the series that I hauled this month. Are there any ones you are particularly excited to see? Are there series you want me to pick up in the future? And just generally give your thoughts and opinions of the series I picked up down in the comments below. And as I've said, your recommendations as well. Let's get some discussion going down there in the comments section. And as always, if you like the video, make sure to like and share. And if you'd like to keep up to date with all of my content, you can either follow me on Twitter or subscribe to the channel and ring that notifications bell. And you can leave any questions, comments, again, concerns down there in the comments section below. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching my manga haul for the month of July 2019. I am Laethas. Goodbye.